Breaking news tonight, the Bryan Kohberger trial. Joining us tonight, Kaylee Goncalves' father is with us live. Good evening. I'm Nancy Grace. This is Crime Stories. Thank you for being with us.
My niece called, and she was very frantic, and she was asking me if I had talked to Kaylee. Kaylee's phone goes directly to voicemail, circling Maddie. Nobody's answering. It's ringing, 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 ringing. So we turn on the TV and we see live news coverage at Kaylee's house, 1122 King Road. Kaylee and Maddie are both dead. A quadruple homicide.
News came in that the police are responding to a call of someone found unconscious. That's the call that originally came in, and then they responded, and then they found the 4 additional bodies, the 4 bodies of these students inside the home. It was originally a call not pertaining to 4 dead bodies, but that's what they found when they entered the home. It was shocking news to hear, especially coming from just the most quiet town.
You were just hearing investigative reporter Ava Wainhouse. At the very beginning, we didn't even understand what had happened. At the beginning, when police were called to the King Road address, no one knew what was to unfold. As the news unfolded, it got worse and worse and worse. And that is for us on the outside looking in. Joining me tonight is a very special guest, Steve Goncalves. This is Kaylee Goncalves' father. Steve, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. I appreciate you supporting these kids.
I really don't even know how to take that, because I don't know who in the world could not support you and your family and Kaylee and the other children. There were children that were killed that night. I just want you to know before we start that you and your wife and your family are the objects of so many prayers. I know it's hard for a lot of people that have never suffered as a crime victim to identify or to relate to what you're going through, but I know from firsthand experience that it's horrible and that it never goes away. And I look at you as you speak to the press, as you go about your life, and I've got to tell you, I am in so much awe and admiration about how you continue forward, how you put one foot in front of the other, and you get up every day, and you keep going, and you keep fighting. You were mentioning earlier how people ask you, hey, how did it turn out? What do you mean by that, Steve?
We have a Facebook page, so we've garnered attention from other countries, and I guess maybe from those countries, a perspective of 2 years, they assume it's over. They assume that we're done, so they'll chime in, they'll comment, they'll send us messages and ask us how did it turn out. You know, people have their own lives, they're running around doing their own things, and then they catch back up. They're like, oh yeah, what happened there in America? And they reach out to us directly because we've opened up those lines of communication, and we have to tell them it hasn't even started. We have not even got to a schedule yet.
You know, when you say it hasn't even started, I've got to tell you, going through the trial is going to be pure hell, and you know that, in addition to what you've already been through. I wonder how you and your family feel as you see other cases hit the headline and take away focus from what you know to be the most important case there is. I remember when my fiance was murdered, I felt like I had stepped off the world. And I look back, and amazingly, the world was still spinning. People were still going to work. People were still going out to nightclubs and movies and out to dinner. And I think it was just too much for me to take in because my world had stopped. I couldn't hear music. I couldn't even hear the clocks ticking in the house. It just, no TV, nothing. Everything had to stop. And I've been wondering how you deal with the fact that seemingly the world is marching on.
Yeah. You're reminded of that every day you wake up and you need to get up and go to work, and you have all these pressing issues. So yeah, I, it's part of the reason why we're fighting is to make sure that my daughter's case is going to get the right people and the right attention, and then the right resolution. So you think it's a guarantee in America, but I think those times have changed. I think you really have to come up and you have to say something and you have to get people involved. And I've heard that from other people who have cases that were never solved, where they wish they could have gone back and picked up that phone, or opened up that door where there was people, knocking on their doors trying to get the inside story. So I knew with my child, there wasn't anything I wouldn't have done to make sure that I was talking and getting that information out and getting people's attention, that we can't allow people to go to school, go to college, and be killed in their sleep from some outsider. There's terrible things going on, but a complete stranger, hunting your child down and getting them while they're sleeping is just you can't get that through your head that that's even possible.
Mr. Goncalves, what you just said has been my theory from about day 3, hunting them down. Because people always ask, of course, as you know now, the state doesn't have to prove a motive, but practically speaking, a jury will want to know a motive. And I believe, with all of my heart, from what we know now, and that may change as the trial progresses, that the victims were hunted down. There is no motive that we can understand, normal people can understand. I think you're right, Mr. Goncalves. I think they were hunted and stalked and watched. Now, I know the state came out in court and said there is no evidence of stalking. And I take that to mean, in the legal sense, like sending Kaylee emails or letters or leaving things at her doorstep, just showing up at her work, trying to date her. I don't think it's stalking in that sense, the way we normally think of it. I think it was more, as you said, hunting.
Yeah, I'm trying to be careful how I describe some of the things that is out there, but yeah, this is a criminologist. This is somebody who spent, probably a century studying law and getting the ins and outs. This person knows there cannot be a direct connection, an easy direct connection. That's how everyone gets caught. So you got to reverse engineer it back to what he was doing and the steps he was taking. I think this will go all the way back to his Pennsylvania home. In his actual room, you're going to find out that he planned this murder from that actual location, and he left Pennsylvania with a thought and a motivation to go out and kill someone.
Steve, you are bringing up a lot of evidentiary implications with what you just said. I think what you're saying is entirely possible. So you believe, and I understand you are not divulging your source, you believe, and I am interpreting, that Kohberger was at Pullman And upon going back home, before he started school, he had locked into your daughter?
I don't know if he locked into the actual victims. I just know that there's signs that point to this individual had a lot of troubled past, and I believe they're going to show that this crime started back there. I think they're going to be able to prove that he thought and planned and strategized this murder and came out here, picked a community. I even think, this is my own personal feeling, I think he picked this area because of some previous killers in this area. And I think he came out here thinking that he was going to outdo them. He was going to be that type of killer. The Northwest has a history of some pretty prevalent mass murder serial killers, and I think he came out here with an idea and a notion that he was going to show them how to do it.
I don't think there's any question, Mr. Goncalves, that he was motivated. And of course, I'm just a trial lawyer and a crime victim. I'm not a shrink. I don't think there's any question that his attack, and of course he's presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law, his attack was motivated by his bizarre interest in criminals, the criminal mind, and criminology. It could have been a desire to know what it feels like to murder someone. I don't know the motivation, and frankly don't care about the motivation. I care only about motive as it relates to what a jury will want to hear. That's all I would care about, because to me it doesn't matter why he did it. It matters that he did it. Question to you, and I know you've been asked this before. How did the whole thing start for you? When, where, how did you learn something horrible had happened?
We were sitting at home as a family. Almost everybody was here. Olivia was just living down in Southern California, but everyone else was here. We were watching a football game, and we started. The phone rang, and we heard that something was going on. As a father of 5 kids, I can't tell you how many times we think something bad's happened, and we can't find one of the kids, and they're just hiding underneath the table or something. So you try to stay calm, and you try to tell yourself that this is just some rumor, something that's been blown out of proportion. Maybe there was some type of accident, but it's not like what has been described to you. So you just sit there and you start getting active. We all started grabbing computers, laptops, and started searching, and then we did see that King Road. It's on King Road. So then we're thinking it's a fight, some kind of quarrel between a relationship of something. The things that you typically hear out here in Idaho, where you're going to have those types of fights and those type of news stories, but you're never thinking it's going to be a homicide of 4 people. That just doesn't go there. And I don't think we even understood what happened for weeks. We were just in a daze, like what you're describing. Like I couldn't even hear music. Music stopped harmonizing. Things just don't make sense anymore. You're just broken, and you're just trying to figure out who's responsible and what you're going to do about it, and how you're going to get to hold them accountable and figure out the truth. I really needed to know the truth. And since that day, we've been on a mission to make sure that we do everything to get to the bottom of this.
Steve, I remember when I first learned on the phone from Keith's sister that he was dead. First of all, I didn't believe it. I thought there had been an accident of some sort. And if I could just get there really quickly, I could fix it. I could talk to the doctors. I could talk to the EMT somehow. I didn't even know where he was. And I remember not believing he was dead until I was reading upside down what my pastor was writing. It said Bernstein Funeral Home. Then it started kind of dawning on me, and I assumed it had been an accident until he told me that Keith had been murdered, shot. When you first got that call, Mr. Goncalves, what were you told that allowed you to think, well, there's been some misunderstanding, there's been an accident, I'm going to find out what's really happening? Like she's hiding under the table, like when she did when she was little. What were you told to make you think, okay, I can fix this, I'm going to find out what's happening?
You know, I have so many other children around me that were in so much pain that I really didn't have a lot of time to even think about myself. I grew up on a football team all the way up to college, and your coach is just pounding your head that it's not about you, it's about your team, it's about the people around you. So I kind of just turned myself off and then just focused on all these kids that were in pain. And then I said, I'm kind of old fashioned. So I just said, you know what, guys, we have to pick up the phone. We have to figure out what happened. You need to call all of her friends. And that's what they did. They got out on social media. They started finding everything. And that's when it became, it still wasn't real though. It wasn't real because I know my girls. I know Maddie. These are like some of the sweetest, most gentle souls that you've ever met. So gentle people don't get murdered. It's not something that even makes sense to you. So um, I don't know when it actually became real. I know when you talk about going to the funeral, I remember thinking just how appalling the whole thing was and how gross it was and how I had to go into this place and I'm conducting business. That's where I switched. You know, I can't be a victim. I'm one of those guys that was like, I'm going to turn this on whoever did this, and I'm coming for him, and I'm going to get him, and we're going to bring wrath on this individual. And if that means I got to wake up at 4 in the morning and do interviews and talk to people and work with willing people, strangers, become friends, then that's what we did. You know, that's what we're doing right now. To this day, I'm still trying to connect dots with anyone who's listening. You know, and that includes the prosecution team, whoever wants to pick up the phone and reach out to us if they have something. We're still here. We're still collecting data.
When everything originally happened, the lack of confirmation, at first it was rumors of murder, suicide, that was ruled out. Things like that, when you live in a small college town, it hurts to not know exactly. And even 48 hours later, when we were still on scene, students were feeling like they wanted more from local authorities and especially wanted more for the families of the victims.
Please join us on our mission to find missing people, especially children, to solve unsolved homicides. If you're on the go, catch us on your favorite podcast app where you can get all of our content where we, in our own way, seek justice.
Kohberger's trial officially changed venues to Ada County in hopes of a fair trial. What's next for the suspected Idaho student's killer?
Just around 3 a.m., in fact, it might have been even a little earlier, a man named Bryan Kohberger was taken into custody in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania. That is nearly 3,000 miles away. In fact, much more than 2,500 miles away from the crime scene here in Moscow, Idaho.
That's right, arrested 3,000 miles away from the crime scene at King Road. The spot where Steve Goncalves believes the murder plan was actually hatched. Who is Bryan Kohberger? Well, we can come up with all the theories we want, but I want you to see Kohberger on video. Now, this is after a female traffic cop. I want to emphasize a female, a lady cop had pulled him over for a traffic violation. Watch this.
Yeah, I was just slightly into the crosswalk, so where I'm from Pennsylvania, we actually don't have like crosswalks.
Oh,
so even if you're kind of slightly, there's a little bit more leeway as well. Like there are a few lines, like there's one white line and there's another one in front. Like there's like a certain margin from which you can actually kind of put your vehicle, place your vehicle.
Yeah. So I know laws vary state to state, but there is a law in Washington for blocking an intersection like that, proceeding through when you don't, when you're just stalling. I forget the actual verbiage. I can find it for you, but it's like stalling, blocking an intersection.
Yeah, I'm just curious about the law. I don't mean to.
Oh no, I can find it for you.
He seems normal. He's actually challenging the lady cop on her knowledge of the traffic law and actually has her look up the law. Listen.
Okay, so I found it. So I don't know what in Pennsylvania where you go to find laws, but in Washington it's called the Revised Code of Washington. So I'll try to turn my brightness up, but it's just called an RCW. So it's RCW 46.61.202. So it's no driver shall enter an intersection unless there is significant space on the other side of the intersection. To accommodate the vehicle he is operating without obstructing the passage of other vehicles, despite any traffic control signal indications.
And it goes on and on and on. Joining us tonight live is the dad of Kaylee Goncalves. Steve is with us, but to Dr. Bethany Marshall joining us, renowned psychoanalyst out of Beverly Hills, author of Deal Breaker. You can see her now on Peacock. Dr. Bethany, we see not only that and the dismissive treatment, the challenging of the lady officer. His car is in the crosswalk while people are trying to cross. Okay, simple, easy. But then we fast forward to helping out, and I'm putting that in quotes, a female colleague with her home security video when he actually hooks it up so he can watch her at home. What? Changing clothes? Going to the bathroom? Who comes to her front door? Sitting on the sofa watching TV? I mean, it goes from one thing to the next regarding women. We see him being asked to leave bars because he freaks women out, walking up to them saying, hey, what's your home address? It's just on and on and on with him and women. I'm curious as to how that played in to him fixing on Kaylee.
Nancy, for psychopaths, which he most certainly is, sex and violence are fused. They are considered one and the same. They go hand in hand. So with the female cop, we can see that he's lying prolifically. He says there are no crosswalks in his state. He's fascinated by the law because that is the thing that gives him proximity to thinking about crimes. A man who wants to commit murder will surround himself with criminality. But to answer your question, I've always felt that these girls are so beautiful and lovely that he wanted to eradicate something good.
You know, when we think about what Dr. Bethany just said, the aspect, Steve, which I know no one likes to think about, but proving this case will require this. The lying in wait aspect, there's no question about it. Yes, the state has said in open court there's no evidence of stalking, but we know his phone turned up along that strip behind the King Road address multiple times. We know he was watching the house and your daughter.
Yeah, for people who aren't familiar with this area, you don't just randomly take a right turn and find yourself in another state. You purposely have to drive and take at one time we looked it up. It was like 15 different intersections and turns to get from Pullman to anywhere close to where these girls in Ethan were. So it's just not like a random, oh, I just took wrong turn here and I found myself in another state, in a town that I'm not familiar with. This person was very familiar with those areas, and there's not a lot of real reasons why he should be over in those areas that often. And I'm sure that is going to be dug into quite deeply once we get into trial time.
When I think about the number of times that we know of, I wonder how many times are there that we don't know of that he was in that area watching that house. I heard Dr. Bethany say something about him. It's hard for regular people like us to relate to what I'm about to say. A person that wants to eradicate, destroy something good. Steve, tell me about your daughter, my girl and boy, you know I have twins, the same age. And I can't imagine why someone would want to hurt them. Tell me about Kaylee.
Kaylee was a beautiful friend. She got along with everyone. We never even had to ever have any kind of conflict with the school or teacher or anything along those lines. So, and Maddie, I know Maddie exactly was the same type of person. So I feel like if you are a corrupted soul and you want to strike out at society, you're going to look for somebody who is going to matter, somebody that the world looks at and says, that's a beautiful person. That's who I want to be like. That's a pinnacle of achieving being a good human being. So I think that in the end is what made them targets. It was their beauty, their smile, their laughter, the way they treated others. They played by the rules, doing things the way that you want your children and you raise your children to do. So in a way, he was striking out when it was a statement he was making when he picked them. I don't like him looking like he did a white collar crime. This isn't a white collar crime, people. This is people, you work your whole life to get them to go to college. Everybody has a dream of their children going to college. You trust the community, you trust the school, you send them off, and then they get killed while they're asleep that night.
In their beds. You know?
And we're going to treat this guy like he just traded insider trading of his own company stocks. It's not white collar. The person who did this crime looked at one of the victims and said, I'm here to help you. If that's not malice, if that's the most type of evil that you could ever hear of, that shouldn't be rewarded with a suit.
And a fresh haircut every time and a clean shaven.
That's wild. That's wild.
We've been told that he does have shackles around his knees or whatnot, but it's like, that's I don't want it to be hidden.
You are hearing Mr. and Mrs. Goncalves, the parents of Kaylee Goncalves, speaking out. To Steve Goncalves joining us tonight. This is Kaylee's father. What do you make of Kohberger's new look with his, looks kind of metrosexual, and apparently there are female fans of his going crazy online? I mean, how bass-ackwards is that? That this guy would have fans demanding a hair salon, trim, new clothes every time he goes to court, not in a jury's presence. It's like he's getting everything he wants. Every demand is given to him at his whim.
Yeah, that's part of the reason why we felt the need to get a lawyer, to make sure that everything was done by the book. And I questioned that everything was, 100% done on paper. Where were these rights coming from? Who was making the decisions to give him the ability to not have normal cuffs? I just don't think any father is going to be okay with their accused mass murderer being treated with any kind of preferential treatment whatsoever. I'm not asking for him to be in shackles and orange during his trial. Everybody deserves a fair trial, and a fair trial means you look presentable and you don't look like a criminal. But we're not even there yet. They're trying to delay everything, and nobody's arguing that they're not trying to, push things back and asking for more time and I need more years and my mitigation, which for people who don't know, comes at the end of the trial. But my mitigation expert witness I need to delay it. I'm just we're frustrated that he's being treated with these preferential things, and we can't find them on paper. Show me who made this decision. I can hold that person accountable. These are elected officials. I can hold people accountable. But if you don't put it on paper, it makes it very hard for me to understand who did it. So this new judge is doing it by the book. Everything I've seen, I like, and that's all I'm asking. We're not asking for him to come in there with the ball and chain and a mask over the top of him. We're just saying, why is this man being treated different than the criminal that comes in an hour after him or an hour before him? Why is he being treated one way as a mass murderer, and these other individuals are being treated in a different manner? That's what we're pointing out, and that's what we're using like forums like this to bring to people's attention, that some of these things are questionable, and we don't like them. We don't like them one bit.
Mr. Goncalves, have you seen him in court?
Yes, I've definitely seen him in court multiple times. The very first chance I was given an opportunity to see him in person, I was there, and we're going to keep that same position where when we can be there and it's a court hearing of any magnitude, of any real decision being making, we're going to be there.
Did he look at you?
No, I've heard that sometimes he has looked in that direction, but I've never seen him look at me.
I want to tell you what happened, Mr. Goncalves. When I did go to my fiance's murder trial, which was a big blur, I thought my dad drove me, but my mom also drove me. I had to take off of work. And my dad at the time was working for the railroad his whole life, and my mom was a payroll clerk, and they would take off to drive me, over 2 hours one way to get there. And I never focused on the defendant. But at the end of my testimony, I came down off a very tall witness stand. It was equal to the judge. And I was walking out, and I looked down at the state's table, and I saw Keith's bloody clothes, which I had never seen until that moment. And then I kept walking, and I came to the defense table, and I looked at the lawyers first, because he was flanked by a bunch of lawyers. And I looked them in the eyes, and they looked down. And then I looked at the defendant, I guess for the first time, in the face, in the eyes. And he looked down, and none of them would look up at me standing at the table. And then I walked out. It was dead quiet in the courtroom, and all I could hear were my boots on that marble floor walking out. And I'm curious, what went through your mind when you first saw Bryan Kohberger?
I don't know where I actually heard it, but I've always heard, and it's always stuck with me, that the eyes are the opening of a man's soul. So yes, I wanted to peer through this man's soul and understand the best that it's possible what kind of person this person is. Um, so yeah, it's not easy, but I have an obligation, and I am not thinking about myself. I'm thinking about what this person stepped into when he picked my daughter, and yeah, it's a very uncomfortable situation. We get people requesting all the time for us to sign off so they can get their hands on these photos, these autopsy photos, or these photos of the crime scene. It's disgusting, and we've made it known that
Steve, I don't understand who is wanting you to sign off to release those photos. I mean,
I'm assuming they're
I've
from other
never
countries.
I've never seen the crime scene photos in my fiance's case. I've never tried to see them, except I was so young when that happened. I had never even been in a courthouse. I didn't even know what a defendant and a plaintiff was. I knew nothing. I've never gone back to the scene where he was murdered because for me, that just means reliving it. And I have children to raise now, and I don't want to be in that again, ever. But when you say people want you to release the crime scene photos of your daughter, what are they thinking? They're like vultures circling. I don't understand that. How dare they?
Yeah, it's clickbait. It's viewers. It's disgusting, and we don't want it. We want nothing to do with any of that disgusting behavior, and hopefully it's not even possible. But as just a regular parent, you don't know. You don't know what's possible. I mean, so much of this is so new to us, and it doesn't make sense. So if one day I woke up and there was pictures of our children on a newspaper with some blurred out stuff, I wouldn't even know what to say or what to do or what my rights would be. So yeah, there's definitely people out there right now who want to make money off of a crime, and they know that that's something that would bring people to them. And we're in an attention economy, and these people want that. They actually are hunting it down.
Suspected Idaho students killer Bryan Kohberger gets a win as judge grants change of venue request.
The Goncalves family has attended every hearing in Bryan Kohberger's prosecution, but is now forced to fundraise to afford relocating to Boise for the trial. The family of 10 released a statement expressing their extreme disappointment in the decision, criticizing the state's failure to cross-examine the defense's witnesses effectively. Now they are hoping to raise enough money to rent a home, feed themselves, and account for 3 months of lost work.
Joining us tonight, Steve Goncalves. This is Kaylee's father. He's living in pure hell every day, waking up to relive the day before. This while he's got other children, his wife, of course, who is suffering as well, and now dealing with having to travel to Boise, hours away, miss work, set up housekeeping there, and drag himself to court every day. Mr. Goncalves, again, please know for what solace it is to you that you and your family are the object of so many prayers. And I hate what you are about to go through. It's a horrible ordeal where you'll have to relive everything that happened from the first moment you picked that phone up and learned that something was wrong up to the moment in court. And you will be looking right at Bryan Kohberger the entire time, if he will even meet your gaze, which I doubt. Why? Why is this trial moved? I understand to protect it on appeal if we get a conviction. But my question to you, the hardship is going to bring upon you and your family. You've set up a GoFundMe. I want to talk about why it's important that you have the GoFundMe. Help Kaylee Goncalves' family attend trial. Explain the hardship it will bring on you and your family, Steve.
I'm literally running to like the equivalent of a train wreck that has my daughter in it and Maddie. I don't want to be in that courtroom. I don't want to see and hear what I'm going to have to hear, but my daughter deserves it. She's beautiful. She's everything to us, and I have to be there for her. And I'm going to be willing to hear and see things that I never ever thought I'd ever have to be facing, but I have to. Knowing what I know, I can't sit on the sideline. I mean, I have a lawyer who was a prosecutor who prosecuted murder cases, and he said nothing is more impactful to that jury than to see firsthand the damage that this person has done to the people that are important to them. So they're going to see.
Steve, you have to be there. I know in your own heart you feel you have to be there, but as a felony prosecutor over a decade, you have to be there, and you have to have your wife there, and you have to have the entire family there, and they have to be on the very front row behind the prosecution. There's no way for this cup to be taken away from you. There's no way you can't show up. You understand that, right?
I do, and I don't want to put it on anyone else, but I hope all families find the strength to at least be there at certain key moments, because all these children, people need to understand how much pain and how beautiful these people were, and the only way that you can really show them that is through your face, through your emotions, through you being there, supporting them. And yes, it's ghoulish, and yes, it's gross, and we don't want to be there, but I feel I have to be there. My family will be there, but I know we're not the only victims, and I know that some people think that we're just trying to draw their attention to ours. It's not that. I just can't ask other people to walk my path. I can only walk mine. In my family, I can walk and coach and counsel them, but I hope everybody finds some strength to let that courtroom understand what the world is missing.
Mr. Goncalves, thank you for being with us tonight. And I cannot imagine any father doing a better job for his child than you are doing tonight and every night for Kaylee. And I'm just very proud that we got to speak with you. For those of you watching or listening now, please help Kaylee Goncalves' family attend her trial. It will be a long and arduous ordeal for them. They are leaving their home, they are leaving their jobs, and doing without to be in court and fight for her. I want to thank Mr. Goncalves for being with us. I also want to thank you for joining us here tonight and every night. Nancy Gray signing off. Keep the faith. Good night. Please join us on our mission to find missing people, especially children, to solve unsolved homicides. If you're on the go, catch us on your favorite podcast app where you can get all of our content where we, in our own way, seek justice.